Hi, story is Aladdin and the Magic Lamp. Long time ago in China, there lived a poor boy whose name was Aladdin. Aladdin lived with his mother. One day, a rich and distinguished-looking man came to their house and said to Aladdin's mother, "I am a merchant from Arabia and want your son to come with me. I will reward him handsomely." Aladdin's mother instantly agreed. Little did she know that the man pretending to be a rich merchant was in reality a magician. Next day, Aladdin, having packed his belongings, left with the merchant. After many hours of traveling, the merchant stopped. Aladdin too stopped, surprised that they should stop in such a desolate spot. He looked around. There was nothing in sight for miles. The merchant pulled out some colored powder from his pocket and threw in the ground. The next instant, the whole place was filled with smoke. As the smoke cleared, Aladdin saw a huge opening in the ground. It was a cave. The merchant turned to Aladdin and said, "I want you to go inside this cave. There will be more gold than you have ever seen. Take as much as you want. You will also see an old lamp. Please bring that back to me. Here, take this ring. It will help you." Aladdin was very suspicious, but decided to do as was told. He lowered himself into the cave, thinking all the while that it would be difficult to climb out without help. Aladdin entered the cave, and just like the merchant had said, saw gold, jewelry, diamonds, and other valuables. He filled his pockets. When this was done, he looked for the lamp. It was lying in the corner, full of dust and dirty. He picked it up and ran to the cave's opening and shouted to the merchant, "I have your lamp. Can you please pull me out?" "Give me the lamp," said the merchant. Aladdin was not sure that he would be pulled out if he gave back the lamp. So he said, "First, please pull me out." Aladdin and the genie. This angered the merchant. With a loud cry, he pulled out the same colorful powder and threw it on the cave opening, sealing it with a huge boulder. Aladdin was depressed. He thought, that was no rich merchant. He was surely a magician. I wonder why this lamp was so important to him. As he was thinking, he rubbed the lamp. All of a sudden, a strange mist filled the room, and from the mist emerged a stranger-looking man. He said, "My master, I am the genie of the lamp. You have rescued me. What would your wish be?" Aladdin was scared, but he said in quivering voice, "Ta, take me back home." And the next moment, Aladdin was home hugging his mother. He told her of the magician and the lamp. Aladdin again summoned the genie. This time when the genie appeared, he was not scared. He said, "Genie, I want a palace, not an old hut." Again to Aladdin, and his mother's amazement, in front of them was a magnificent palace. Time passed. Aladdin married the Sultan's daughter and was very happy. It so happened that the evil magician got to know of Aladdin's good fortune. He came by Aladdin's palace, pretending to exchange old lamps for new. The princess, Aladdin's wife, not knowing the value of the lamp to Aladdin, called out to the magician to wait. As soon as the magician saw the lamp, he grabbed it from the princess' hand and rubbed it. The genie appeared. "You are my master and your wish is my command," he said to the magician. "Take Aladdin's palace to the great desert far away from here," ordered the magician. When Aladdin came home, there was no palace and no princess. He guessed it must be the evil magician who had come to take revenge on him. All was not lost. Aladdin had a ring that the magician had given to him. Aladdin pulled out that ring, rubbed it. Another genie appeared. Aladdin said, "Take me to my princess." Soon, Aladdin was in Arabia with his princess. He found his lamp lying on a table next to the magician. Before the magician could react, Aladdin jumped for the lamp and got hold of it. As soon as he had the lamp, Aladdin rubbed it. The genie appeared again and said, "My master, Aladdin, it is indeed good to serve you again. What is it that you wish?" "I want you to send this magician to another world so that he never harms anybody," said Aladdin. Aladdin's wish was carried out. The evil magician disappeared forever. The genie carried Aladdin, the princes, and the palace back to China. He stayed with Aladdin for the rest of his life. If you like this story, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.
Hi, this story is Aladdin Story Part 1. There once lived in one of the large and rich cities of China a tailor named Mustafa. He was very poor. He could hardly, by his daily labor, maintain himself and his family, which consisted only of his wife and a son. His son, who was called Aladdin, was a very careless and idle fellow. He was disobedient to his father and story of Aladdin mother, and would go out early in the morning and stay out all day, playing in the streets and public places with idle children of his own age. When he was old enough to learn a trade, his father took him into his own shop and taught him how to use his needle but all his father's endeavors to keep him to his were vain. For no sooner was his bat than he was gone for that day. Mustafa chastised him, but Aladdin was incorrigible, and his father, to his great grief, was forced to abandon him to his idleness, and was so much troubled about him that he fell sick and died in a few months. Aladdin, who was now no longer restrained by the fear of order, gave himself entirely over to his idle habits, and was never out of the streets from his companions. This course he followed till he was 15 years old, without giving his mind to any useful pursuit, or the least reflection on what would become of him, as he was one day playing, according to custom, in the street with his evil associates. A stranger passing by stood to observe him. This stranger was a sorcerer, known as the African magician, as he had been but 2 days arrived from Africa, his native country. The African magician, observing in Aladdin's countenance something which assured him that he was a fit boy for his purpose, inquired his name and history of some of his companions, and when he had learned all he desired to know, went up to him, and taking him aside from his comrades, "Child, was not your father called Mustafa the tailor?" "Yes, sir," answered the boy, "but he has been dead a long time." At these words the African magician threw his arms about Aladdin's neck, and kissed him several times, with tears in his eyes, and said, "I am your uncle. Your worthy father was my own brother. I knew you at first sight, you are so like him." Then he gave Aladdin a handful of small money, saying, "Go, my son, to your mother. Give my love to her, and tell her that I will visit her tomorrow, that I may see where my good brother lives so long," and ended his days. Aladdin ran to his mother, overjoyed at the money his uncle had given him. "Mother," said he, "have I an uncle?" "Child," replied his mother, "you have no uncle by your father's side or mine." "I am just now come," said Aladdin, "from a man who says he is my uncle and my father's brother. He cried and kissed me when I told him my father was dead, and gave me money sending his love to you, and promising to come and pay you a visit, that he may see the house my father lived and died in." "Indeed, child," replied the mother, "your father had no brother, nor have you an uncle." The next day the magician found Aladdin playing in another part of the town, and embracing him as before, put 2 pieces of gold into his hand, and said to him, "Carry this, child, to your mother. Tell her that I will come and see her tonight, and bid her get us something for supper. But first, show me the house where you live." If you like this story, like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Hi, this story is Aladdin in Story Part 2. Aladdin showed the African magician the house, and carried the 2 pieces of gold to his mother, who went out and bought provisions, and, considering she wanted various utensils, borrowed them of her neighbors. She spent the whole day in preparing the supper, and at night, when it was ready, said to her son, "Perhaps the stranger knows not how to find our house. Go and bring him. If you meet with him." Aladdin was just ready to go when the magician knocked at the door, and came in loaded with wine and all sorts of fruits, which he brought for a dessert. After he had given what he brought into Aladdin's hands, he saluted his mother, and desired her to show him the place where his brother Mustafa used to sit on the sofa. And when she had done so, he fell down and kissed it several times, crying out with tears in his eyes, "My poor brother, how unhappy am I, not to have come soon enough to give you one last embrace." Aladdin's mother desired him to sit down in the same place, but he declined. "No," said he, "I shall not do that, but give me leave to sit opposite to it, that although I see not the master of a family so dear to me, I may at least behold the place where he used to sit." When the magician had made choice of a place, and sat down, he began to enter into discourse with Aladdin's mother. "My good sister," said he, "do not be surprised at your never having seen me all the time you have been married to my brother Mustafa of happy memory. I have been 40 years absent from this country, which is my native place, as well as my late brother's. and during that time have traveled into the Indies, Persia, Arabia, Syria, and Egypt, and afterward crossed over into Africa, where I took up my abode. At last, as it is natural for a man, I was desirous to see my native country again, and to embrace my dear brother, and finding I had strength enough to undertake so long a journey, I made the necessary preparations and set out. Nothing ever afflicted me so much as hearing of my brother's death. But God be praised for all things. It is a comfort for me to find, as it were, my brother in a son who has his most remarkable features. The African magician, perceiving that the widow wept at the remembrance of her husband, changed the conversation, and turning toward her son, asked him, "What business do you follow? Are you of any trade?" At this question the youth hung down his head, and was not a little abashed when his mother answered, "Aladdin is an idle fellow. His father, when alive, strove all he could to teach him his trade, but could not succeed. And since his death, notwithstanding all I can say to him, he does nothing but idle away his time in the streets, as you saw him, without considering he is no longer a child. And if you do not make him ashamed of it, I despair of his ever coming to any good. For my part, I am resolved one of these days to turn him out of doors and let him provide for himself." After these words Aladdin's mother burst into tears, and the magician said, "This is not well, nephew. You must think of helping yourself and getting your livelihood. There are many sorts of trades. Perhaps you do not like your father's and would prefer another. I will endeavor to help you. If you have no mind to learn any handicraft, I will take a shop for you, furnish it with all sorts of fine stuffs and linens, and then with the money you make of them you can lay in fresh goods, and live in an honorable way. Tell me freely what you think of my proposal. You shall always find me ready to keep my word." After these words Aladdin's mother burst into tears, and the magician said, "This is not well, nephew. Must think of helping yourself and getting your livelihood. There are many sorts of trades. Perhaps you do not like your father's and would prefer another. I will endeavor to help you. If you have no mind to learn any handicraft, I will take a shop for you, furnish it with all sorts of fine stuffs and linens, and then with the money you make of them you can lay in fresh goods, and live in an honorable way. Tell me freely what you think of my proposal. You shall always find me ready to keep my word." This plan just suited Aladdin, who hated work. He told the magician he had a greater inclination to that business than to any other, and that he should be much obliged to him for his kindness. "Well then," said the African magician, "I will carry you with me tomorrow, clothe you as handsomely as the best merchants in the city, and afterward we will open a shop as I mentioned." The widow, after his promises of kindness to her son, no longer doubted that the magician was her husband's brother. She thanked him for his good intentions, and after having exhorted Aladdin to render himself worthy of his uncle's favor, served up supper, at which they talked of several indifferent matters. And then the magician took his leave and retired. He came again the next day as he had promised, and took Aladdin with him to a merchant, who sold all sorts of clothes for different ages and ranks ready-made, and a variety of fine stuffs, and bade Aladdin choose those he preferred, which he paid for. If you like this story, like, share and subscribe. Thank you.